July 14th, 1789. A sweltering morning in Paris, where the cobblestone streets of the Faubourg Saint-Antoine buzz with fury and fear. Thousands of artisans, shopkeepers, and laborers, armed with pikes, muskets, and makeshift clubs, march toward the towering gray fortress of the Bastille, its 8 medieval towers piercing the sky like accusatory fingers. Smoke from burning toll booths lingers in the air. Cries of "Liberté" echo off the stone walls. Inside, Governor Bernard-René de Launay, a stern aristocrat with a garrison of 82 veteran soldiers and 32 Swiss reinforcements, peers from the battlements, his cannons loaded but withdrawn to avoid provocation. The crowd demands the surrender of the prison's vast stores of gunpowder. 250 barrels recently moved there for safekeeping, amid rumors that King Louis XVI's troops are massing to crush the nascent revolution. Negotiations falter. A misunderstanding sparks gunfire. As the drawbridge crashes down, the mob surges in, the clash of steel and roar of cannons drowning out pleas for mercy. By afternoon, the Bastille falls, its governor dragged through the streets and beheaded, his head paraded on a pike. Only 7 prisoners are freed, 4 forgers, 2 mentally ill men, and 1 deviant count. But the symbolic victory ignites a fire that will consume the Ancien regime. This is no mere riot. It's the spark of the French Revolution, a cataclysm that topples monarchies, bursts republics, and reshapes the world with ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Welcome to Vestige Files, where we unearth the pivotal moments that shaped history. This is the story of the storming of the Bastille, a drama of desperation, defiance, and destiny that unleashed the modern age. To understand this explosive turning point, we must rewind to the late 18th century when France teetered on the brink of bankruptcy and enlightenment. In the 1780s, France was Europe's most populous and powerful kingdom, with 28 million subjects under the absolute rule of the Bourbon monarchy. Louis XVI, ascending the throne in 1774 at age 19, inherited a realm of grandeur and decay. The Ancien regime divided society into 3 estates. The first, clergy, 0.5% of population, owning 10% of land, tax-exempt. The second, nobility, 1.5%, owning 25% of land, privileged. And the third, everyone else, peasants, bourgeoisie, workers, bearing the tax burden. Feudal dues, tithes, and internal tariffs stifled economy. Bread prices soared due to poor harvests in 1788 to 1789, exacerbated by the Flower War riots of 1775. Enlightenment philosophers like Voltaire, Rousseau, and Montesquieu critiqued despotism, advocating reason, rights, and social contracts. Rousseau's The Social Contract, 1762, proclaimed, "Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains." The American Revolution, 1775 to 1783, aided by French troops and funds under Marquis de Lafayette, inspired with its Declaration of Independence, but bankrupted France. Debts reached 4 billion livres, half the annual revenue servicing interest. Finance ministers like Jacques Necker, a Swiss banker appointed in 1777, published the first public accounts in 1781, revealing deficits and fueling calls for reform. Necker's dismissal in 1781 led to successors like Charles Alexander de Calonne, who in 1787 convened the Assembly of Notables, 150 elites, to approve taxes on privileged estates, but they refused, demanding the Estates General, dormant since 1614. Louis XVI relented, calling the Estates General for May 1789. Elections sparked debate. Abbé Emmanuel Joseph Sieyes's pamphlet, "What is the Third Estate?" January 1789, argued it represented 96% of France, deserving dominance. Over 1,100 deputies elected, 300 each for first and second, 600 for third, including lawyers like Maximilien Robespierre and nobles like Lafayette. On May 5, 1789, the assembly opened at Versailles amid pomp, but deadlock ensued. The Third Estate demanded voting by head, favoring them, not by order, 1 vote per estate. King and nobles resisted. On June 17th, Third Estate deputies, joined by some clergy, declared themselves the National Assembly, claiming sovereignty. Louis ordered the hall closed. On June 20th, they reconvened at a nearby tennis court, swearing the tennis court oath, vowing not to disband until a constitution was written, led by astronomer Jean-Sylvain Bailly and Comte de Mirabeau, a renegade noble. On June 23rd, in a royal session, Louis nullified their acts and ordered dispersal. But Mirabeau retorted, "We are here by the will of the people and shall not leave except by the force of bayonets." Troops amassed around Paris and Versailles, 30,000 by early July, rumored to dissolve the assembly. On July 9th, the National Assembly proclaimed itself the National Constituent Assembly, tasked with constitution making. Necker, reappointed in 1788, sympathized with reforms, but was dismissed again on July 11, 1789. News reaching Paris, July 12th. Paris erupted. The city, swollen to 600,000 with unemployed workers amid bread shortages, a loaf cost 14 sous, half a day's wage, seethed. On July 12th, crowds gathered at the Palais Royal, where orators like Camille Desmoulins, a journalist, harangued from cafe tables, "Citizens, Necker is dismissed." This is the tocsin of St. Bartholomew for the patriots. Rioters burned effigies, closed theaters, and stormed customs barriers, chanting against the king. The French Guard, sympathetic soldiers, mutinied. Electors from the Third Estate formed a municipal government at the Hôtel de Ville, appointing Bailly as mayor and Lafayette as commander of a citizen militia, the National Guard, adopting the tricolor cockade, blue and red for Paris, white for Bourbon. On July 13th, crowds looted gunsmiths and monasteries for arms. Rumors spread of royal attacks. By dawn July 14th, the focus shifted to the Hôtel des Invalides, where 30,000 muskets were seized from the governor, Marquis de Sombreuil, without resistance, but no gunpowder. Eyes turned to the Bastille, 2 miles east, known to hold vast stores. The Bastille, built in the 1370s as a fortress against English invaders, had become a state prison under lettre de cachet, arbitrary royal warrants, though its dungeons evoke dread through tales like those of the Man in the Iron Mask, a prisoner from 1669 to 1703. By 1789, it was underused and slated for demolition. Governor de Launay, appointed in 1776, commanded the Invalides, pensioned veterans, and had reinforced with Swiss troops on July 7. He stored the gunpowder there on July 12th for security amid unrest. July 14th dawned tense. At 10 a.m., a crowd of 900 to 1,000, sans-culottes, working class in trousers, not aristocratic breeches, gathered at the Bastille's outer courtyard, demanding its surrender. 3 delegates from the Hôtel de Ville, including Merchant Jacques de Flesselles, prévôt des marchands, negotiated with de Launay through the gates. De Launay, without royal orders, refused but hosted a delegate for lunch to show goodwill, withdrawing cannons from embrasures to de-escalate. But the crowd, impatient, grew restless. Around 1 p.m., 2 daring men, cabinet maker Louis Tournay and another, climbed the wall using a nearby shop roof, cut the drawbridge chains, and lowered it over the moat. Hundreds surged into the undefended outer courtyard, believing invitation. Guards, panicking at the unauthorized entry, fired from the inner towers, muskets and grape shot killing dozens. The crowd retreated but returned fire from surrounding rooftops and streets, the battle raging for hours amid smoke and screams. Reinforcements arrived around 3:30 p.m. Mutinous French guards under Pierre-Augustin Hulin, a former royal sergeant and laundry owner, and Jacob Job Elie, a lieutenant from the Queen's Infantry. They brought 2 cannons from the Invalides, positioning them against the inner drawbridge. De Launay, facing bombardment, considered exploding the powder magazine, enough to level half of Paris, but his officers dissuaded him, citing civilian deaths. At 5 p.m., he sent a note through an embrasure: "Surrender if allowed, honorable retreat to safety." The crowd, unable to hear amid chaos, ignored it. De Launay ordered the inner drawbridge lowered, waving a white handkerchief. The mob flooded in, disarming the garrison. Jubilation mixed with vengeance. Soldiers were initially protected, but as the crowd swelled to thousands, lynching began. 3 officers and 3 soldiers were killed. De Launay marched to the Hôtel de Ville for trial, kicked a pastry cook named Desnaux in the groin, provoking the mob to stab and shoot him, His head, severed by Desnat with a pocket knife, was mounted on a pike, paraded alongside Flesselles, accused of treachery and shot en route. The 7 prisoners emerged: counterfeiters Bernard Laroche, Jean-Antoine Poujade, Jean Béchade, and de White de Malville; lunatic Jean-Antoine de la Corrège and Hubert de Solage; and Comte de Solage. Wait, sources vary. Actually, 4 forgers: Jean La Corrège, Bernard Laroche, Jean Béchade, Jean-Antoine Poujade; 2 lunatics, Tavernier and de White, and the Comte de Solage, imprisoned for incest. They were hailed as heroes, though most returned to obscurity or asylums. The gunpowder, vital for the National Guard, was carted to the Hôtel de Ville. News spread rapidly. That evening, a delegation including Lafayette presented the Bastille's keys to the National Assembly at Versailles. Louis XVI, hunting at Versailles, learned of the fall from the Duc de La Rochefoucauld-Liancourt. "Is it a revolt?" the king asked. "No, sire, it is a revolution." Troops withdrew. On July 15th, Louis visited the Assembly, promising cooperation. On July 17th, he entered Paris amid cheers, donning the tricolor cockade at the Hôtel de Ville, reinstating Necker and confirming Bailly and Lafayette. But violence simmered. Aristocrats like the Comte d'Artois, future Charles V, fled July 16th, starting the first émigré wave. The storming shock waves rippled. In the provinces, the Great Fear, late July-August, saw peasants fearing aristocratic reprisals, attack chateaux, burning feudal records. Urban revolts seized municipalities. The Assembly responded decisively. On August 4th, in a night session, nobles like Vicomte de Noailles and Duc d'Aiguillon proposed abolishing privileges, feudal dues, tax exemptions, venality of offices, heralding equality. The August decrees formalized this, dismantling the Ancien Regime. On August 26th, the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen proclaimed natural rights, sovereignty of the nation, and liberty, drafted by Lafayette, CAS, and Mirabeau, influenced by American precedents. Yet conflict deepened. Bread shortages persisted. On October 5th to 6th, women marched on Versailles, forcing the royal family to Paris, effectively prisoners at the Tuileries. Factions emerged. Moderates like Mirabeau sought constitutional monarchy. Radicals like Robespierre pushed further. The Assembly nationalized church lands, November 1789, to fund assignats, alienating clergy. In 1790, the civil constitution of the clergy subordinated church to state, splitting society. The Bastille's fall resolved nothing immediately, but unleashed irreversible change. Demolition began July 16th under contractor Pierre-François Palouet, who turned rubble into souvenirs, miniature Bastille, medals, inkwells, distributing stones to departments as revolutionary relics. The site became Place de la Bastille, with an elephant fountain planned by Napoleon, later replaced by the July column. July 14th was commemorated from 1790 with fête, but formalized as Bastille Day in 1880 under the Third Republic, a national holiday with military parades on the Champs-Élysées. The revolution evolved tumultuously. In 1791, the Assembly drafted a constitution, creating a legislative assembly. But Louis's failed flight to Varennes, June 1791, eroded trust. War with Austria and Prussia in 1792 radicalized events. On August 10th, Sans-Culottes stormed the Tuileries, suspending the monarchy. The National Convention, elected September 1792, proclaimed the Republic. Louis XVI was guillotined January 21st, 1793. Queen Marie Antoinette followed October 16th. The Reign of Terror, 1793 to 1794. Under the Committee of Public Safety led by Robespierre, executed 16,000 to 40,000, including moderates like Lafayette, imprisoned abroad, and radicals like Desmoulins. Robespierre fell July 27, 1794, Thermidor, ending terror. The Directory, 1795 to 1799, stabilized but corrupted, paving for Napoleon Bonaparte's coup. November 9, 1799, establishing the consulate, then empire in 1804. The Bastille's legacy transcended France. It inspired revolutions, Haitian, 1791, Latin American, 1810s, European, 1830, 1848. Its ideals, liberty, equality, fraternity, shaped modern democracy, human rights declarations, and nationalism. Yet horrors like the Terror warned of revolution's dangers, influencing thinkers like Edmund Burke. Reflections on the Revolution in France, 1790, critiquing radicalism. Economically, it abolished feudalism, redistributed land, but caused inflation and war devastation. Socially, it emancipated Jews, 1791, abolished slavery briefly, 1794, reinstated 1802 by Napoleon, and advanced women's roles, though rights were limited. Olympe de Gouges' Declaration of the Rights of Woman, 1971, led to her execution. Human stories endured. Lafayette, hero of two revolutions, commanded the National Guard until 1791, then defected, imprisoned 5 years. Sieyès survived to aid Napoleon's coup. Bailly, guillotined in 1793, Hulin and Elie received pensions as Vainqueurs de la Bastille, 983 certified by 1790. Palloy profited from souvenirs but died bankrupt. The 7 prisoners, the forgers freed but rearrested, lunatics institutionalized, the count released. Today, Bastille Day fireworks at the Eiffel Tower commemorate the event, symbolizing unity amid debates over France's revolutionary heritage, seen in movements like the Yellow Vests, 2018. The storming proved people's power could topple symbols of oppression, but at costs of blood and chaos. Louis XVI, Necker de Launay, their fates showed how swiftly tides turn when grievance meets opportunity. Was the storming of the Bastille a glorious birth of liberty, or the opening act of a tragedy that devoured its children? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this whirlwind of revolution swept you up, hit that like button, subscribe to Vestige Files, and ring the bell for more stories of history's turning points.